Hello and welcome to the Super Rugby Trans-Tasman review for round two of the competition, where we had, what do we have? We had the Hurricanes versus the Rebels, the Force versus the Highlanders, Blues, Waratahs, Chiefs, Brumbies, and Reds versus Crusaders. So 5 games again this weekend in Super Rugby Trans-Tasman. I'll take you through all of those games. I've also got some post-match reaction videos from the Chiefs versus the Waratahs one with the head coaches for both of those as well. So great to have you here. Don't forget, we're live at 8 p.m. every single Sunday with the Super Rugby Review Show, or you can catch it as a podcast. Just search for New Zealand Sports Radio on your favourite podcatcher. So kicking us off on Friday night, we had the Hurricanes versus the Rebels. Look, I'll be honest, I didn't go into this one expecting too much. We'd already seen the Waratahs, we'd already seen that the Hurricanes have a big scoring game against the Waratahs where both sides racked up big points, but it was a comfortable Hurricanes win. Now, I was expecting something perhaps similar, but with probably less points or less tries, because the Rebels really have been were the lowest try scorers in Super Rugby AU, so I wasn't expecting too many points from them. Early on, look, the Canes really were just going for the corner. They weren't actually kicking over threes or trying to build a score. Perhaps they had that bonus point in mind straight from the off, and perhaps an element of arrogance there, and maybe perhaps not the best way to go about it. Perhaps you should start building the score and use scoreboard pressure to pick up those tries later on. After 14 minutes, the Rebels lost Elof to a yellow card for collapsing the maul. Also, Nazarani was off as well with the HIA. So early disruptions to the Tars in what is, let's be honest, a inexperienced team that needs all the experience it can find in those sort of situations. Julian Severe showed like he was nearly back by nearly bashing over in the corner as the bus. And look, he has been playing much better these last few weeks. Not at all suggesting All Blacks level performances, but definitely creditable at Super Rugby level against the opposition I had the last couple of weeks. And Severe was the one that opened up the scoring with an interception try going over under the post. I mean, the Rebels had hardly had that ball for that first 90 minutes, held out well, finally get the ball, and what do? They give up points after weathering that early storm. A real shame for them on that one. Gordon really the scrum half. Oh, sorry, not scrum half. The fly half really wasn't looking very comfortable in his positioning at this point. Samoa had moved out to 12 from 10, and Gordon had come in at 10. And sometimes we saw Tamura in there where he thought he should be, and then he looked like he was wandering around looking where he should be at times, which wasn't particularly good for him. But look, he is new at this kind of level. The Rebels did get the next points on the board with as the Hurricanes go a penalty straight from the kickoff, so it went back to 7-3. But then Laumape cuts back, passes out of the tackle. The scrum half gives it to Proctor, and Proctor goes over to score, and it's 14-3 at that point. We had Hooson going for a run, missing, making 9 tackles missed, but didn't really finish it. And look, the Hurricanes, 20 clean breaks in this game, but only scoring, the inverted commas there, scoring 5 tries. The Hurricanes were not at their best by any stretch of imagination, really messing some things up here, but the Rebels, no way good enough. They did score in the corner straight after half-time, but that just led us to another try. Well, Laumape break first, Hooson close, plays the ball about 3 times, but gets pinged eventually for holding on. Should have been pinged just for those three movements. But again, they went close again. Another opportunity that the Hurricanes should have scored. The Hurricanes, as I say, left a lot of points out there with their 564 meters running. Yes, a lot of running in this game. We had Proctor bouncing out of a tackle, a couple of tackles, giving it Severe for his try. I'm down at 55 tries. Not sure if he's top try scorer or just one behind. Cullen and TJ Piranara, but he's very close now and should probably catch them or overtake them in the next couple of weeks, you'd think. Magnay bundled over with 3 players on him. That was pretty impressive. It was all about Powell upping the pace at that point. And then he gets pulled off straight away afterwards. He's like, what are they doing with the Rebels there? So some questionable tactics with their substitutes there. Look, that closed it up to 14-8 was the closest it ever got. The Hurricanes pulled away to win it by 35-13 in the end with the bonus point win. But I say a lot of butch opportunities. Their tackling, however, was spot on. 96% tackling. They made 134 tackles and only missing 5, so really good there. The Rebels, on the other hand, made 109 tackles, but they missed 44. Yeah, horrendous defence by the Rebels in this game, missing those tackles, allowing 20 line breaks. The Rebels were an absolute mess in this one, to be honest with you. Some of the players that, from a stats point of view, I mean, on those missed tackles, where do they come from? Well, 6 by Tamua, another 5 by Gordon, so your halfback combination there, 11 missed tackles between them, and then the rest are kind of spread out across the team with those. On the attacking side of things, 113 metres for Julian Surveyor, a couple of breaks, as I say, that interception try, for example. Lamapi with 100 metres as well. 8 defenders beaten for Wes Hewson, leading the charge there. Amua also got in on the action as well. Good evening, Simon. Great to have you joining us here on New Zealand Sports Radio. Thank you for joining us. And so, yes, as expected, the Hurricanes got that comfortable win over the Rebels there. But I think they'll have much sterner tasks ahead of them. They've played now the worst 2 teams or the weakest 2 teams in Super Rugby AU, in the Waratahs and the Rebels. It's the Force at home next weekend, which is good for them to be at home. Tough ask for the Force in that one. But then with the Reds and Brumbies in the last 2 weeks, so going to get a bit harder for the Hurricanes, and they're going to need to finish their opportunities off and not leave quite so many out there. Next up was the Force versus the Highlanders, and to be honest with you, I struggled to stay awake during this one just because it was late rather than the actual quality of play or anything. But essentially, the Highlanders jumped out to a 12-0 lead in the opening sort of quarter. Aaron Smith with a brilliant try, thrown to the back of the line out to suck in that back defender, and then Aaron Smith hit the gap, hit the seam between the lineouts and the backs players straight through. And because they'd thrown to the back and pulled in that defender, that left the gap that Aaron Smith could go through with Nariki on his shoulder to get the ball to and go over. So wonderfully worked move there with that one. There was quite a big break for injury, and I think Kahu is lucky not to get a yellow card for a deliberate knock-on. But we then had a scrum penalty and a line-out maul with no jumper, just thrown straight to 3, or straight to 2, sorry, where I think it was Frizzell put his hands up and just caught it, and then the line-out maul, and the maul went over. Certainly it's 12-0. We also then had another line-out maul that Aaron Smith takes it out, gives it to Gregory to score. And that's right, the 3 tries that have come for the Highlanders, all from lineouts, you'll see in that first half. So clearly the key thing there is not to give the Highlanders lineouts in your own half. The Highlanders had 20 lineouts in this game, only lost 1. Partially that's from the 12 penalties that the Force gave up, but the other one is from clearing kicks, obviously. But you have a bit of a dilemma, don't you? Do you kick the ball in field and accept a counter-attack, or do you kick it out and then have the Highlanders attack you off a line-out? It's a difficult one either way. Hunt had good and bad points, kicked out in the full, etc. The referee had a decent game in this one. There was a try for the Force just before half-time, and it looked like there was a knock-on in there, but it actually came back off a Highlanders player. So well done to him for playing advantage that led on to that try. But again, Western Force, perhaps one of the most competitive teams, even if they did lose this one 15-25. So it's one of the closer, if it's not the closest margin, I think, this weekend. So whilst we've probably been disparaging the Force at home, they're proving difficult to beat. So their trip away to the Hurricanes next weekend is going to be a bit of a task, a real test for them to do it on the road, though. They're being good. Actually, probably I think one of the biggest, if not the biggest, crowds this weekend. We'll talk about crowds later. So that saw us on Friday night, and then we head on to Saturday. Now, because I was at the Chiefs versus the Brumbies game, I didn't get to watch the Blues versus the Waratahs live, or just bits of it. I have caught up with highlights today in this one. But interesting, the Blues didn't make the same mistake the Hurricanes did. They went for 3 points early on and knocked over the point, not going for the corner there. I didn't actually put in the last score on here. But Bryce Heem has settled in well, hasn't he? Eventually, has got to know the team, and he picked up I think it was a hat trick on the night, out wide after a scrum. A couple of phases led to an overlap. He then cut inside and scored that one. There are at least two opportunities that were the Blues are left out there after that, though. And again, this is another one where, 18 clean breaks in this one for 6 tries. The Blues management are not going to be happy with perhaps some of the execution here, or some of the clinicality of this Blues team. Robinson scoring in the corner came after a lucky bounce with a Heem kick that got charged down. Again, that was straight after a turnover, and 15 turnovers by the Tars in this one. But the Blues that's where the Blues really hurt them, I think, in this one. And look, those two disallowed tries, sure, suddenly it's 15-0 heading towards the hour mark. But then they allowed the Tars back into this with 2 tries. Bell beats the rush defence to go over as the props go to work. And then Gordon has an interception try from that one. Tom Christie stood at first receiver. He's normally in the scrum half position. Doesn't look and gives it to Gordon, who by accident he goes over. And suddenly it's just a 1-point game after the Blues dominating it. And that's not where it should have been. The Blues then did manage to get a line-out maul try after bashing away the line, getting themselves a penalty, and were held up short. The Tars then have a penalty close to the Blues line. They go for a scrum. 8 peels off and gives it to Tom Christie. So intercepting it there again. So that both nines getting themselves involved or stealing the ball there. We did have a yellow card then for the Waratahs soon after that, and during the next 10 minutes, it ended up being a try each. So the Tars actually did quite well during that one. But after getting within 1 point, the Blues just pulled away, and the Tars could just get that one try in the second half. The Blues pulled it away to 48-21. Again, interceptions and turnovers were sort of a problem for the Tars, and that rush defence by the Blues was good. Zane Sullivan was good and very prominent towards the end there, getting his arms free in the tackle, giving some good passes or offloads, depending on how you want to look at it. Keeping that ball alive, which is all important for that fast ball. There, 11 passes, which for the fullback there, which is third, only after Tom Christie, the fly half, scrum half, and Trey Black, the fly half. So really got himself involved in this game, even if he only had 23 meters running. His ability to keep that ball alive was really impressive. 6 clean breaks for Bryce Heem there. So a main contributor to those on that side of things. Akiri Iwani, 16 carries, so he got himself through a chunk of work in this game. Not quite as much as Angus Bell, who the prop though with 18 carries. Boy, oh boy! Look, scrumming is supposed to be your main job, folks, and perhaps we've seen a bit of an issue there for some of the Australian teams over the opening 2 rounds. On the defensive side of things, 17 tackles by Tom Robinson and not one missed. Boy, oh boy, they did miss him at the beginning of the season, didn't they, with his injury. He's created much more balance in that back row since he's come back, which is good. Lockie Swinton with 12 led the way for the Waratahs. But look, you can't, the Blues, again, not finishing off opportunities. That's really the difference between the Crusaders and the other New Zealand sides. And we'll hear Clayton McMillan talking about that in a few moments when I talk about the Chiefs versus the Brumbies game. But before we get on to that, quick commercial break. Yes, New Zealand Sports Radio is an independent production company bringing you shows every single day, including the morning sports briefing, as well as rugby league, football shows as well. So if you'd like to support us and help us bring you more content, get around to more grounds in the club rugby and also the other club sports, then think about heading over to patreon.com/NZ Sport Radio to become a supporter of New Zealand Sports Radio. And also you will get access to exclusive pieces that you can find on nzsportradio.com, where we look at have exclusive videos and podcasts for our supporters there. So after that, we had the Chiefs versus the Brumbies. I was lucky to be at, and look, the Chiefs did a very good job in this one of controlling the game. I felt playing the game where they wanted to and with the ball. So if you look at some of the stats, they're not wildly disparate. Tackling percentage 82%, 85%. Missed tackles 27 for both teams. Clean breaks 10 for the Chiefs, 8 for the Brumbies. Turnovers 14 by the Chiefs, 17 for the Brumbies. Look, and possession and territory 51%, 49%, 55%, 45% they were on territory. So look, a lot of the stats very even, but just the amount of control that you felt that the Chiefs had during that game was felt like they were always leading and not going to lose. They got I got an early score before he had to go off with a poked finger in the eye. So hopefully he'll be back and okay from that. Ikitau, saw that he had a lock in front of him, took the player on the outside to even things up at 5-5. But then the scrum really came into its own with a pushover try, or what was a wheeling try that Luke Jacobson scored off the back of. And then again, another 5-minute try that off the back of a wheeling try, Jacobson scores again. So then suddenly it's 19-5 going into half time. Jacobson had a great break, but didn't get the pass away to Webber, which was a which was an opportunity that went begging. And in the second half, again, the Chiefs were the first to score. And look, at 26-5, it was always going to be too much for the Brumbies to come back from. It finished at 40-19 with a late score there for the Brumbies. And let's have a quick listen to the Brumbies head coach.
We let ourselves down tonight. We were disappointing. Lacked physicality and intent, and we've spoken about it a lot. You won't win in New Zealand if you lack in those areas. And yeah, we're beaten by the better team on the night.
Was this a 3-game road trip to start that campaign seen as like a positive originally, or that you only do one trip across the town?
Oh, it's a great learning curve, isn't it? It's it's not often these days that you get 3-game tours in New Zealand, so it's a really good opportunity to learn and develop and understand where we're at currently, and that's it's great for our young players.
Yeah, look, just pausing it there because he's talking there about the fact that their opening draw is the Crusaders, the Chiefs, and the Blues, all on the road. The top 3 teams from Super Rugby Aotearoa. I think it's a really unfair schedule for the Brumbies. And I think you can see there from his eyes, say a great opportunity, great learning opportunity, great opportunity to see where we're at, etc. That I think they went into. I think he's acknowledging that his chances of them challenging for the final for the title in this after that kind of start was pretty unlikely. He does lay the blame entirely. Takes total blame, take total ownership of them not winning this game. There's no blaming of the ref or anything like that. It's totally down to he realizes where their problems were, but they just didn't have the intensity that they needed.
After such a successful AU comp, can you put your finger on why it's been a setback to start Trans-Tasman? Is it as much a hangover from that domestic comp as anything?
Oh, look, there's been 2 games, hasn't there? We were well in that contest last week against the best side in the world at the moment at club level, you'd imagine. So tonight we were off. We let ourselves down. So it's I'm not sitting here and thinking that the Chiefs are miles ahead of us as a football team. They were better on the night tonight, and credit to them.
I think that shows that look, some good level-headedness there. Yet they were very close against the Crusaders. It was 1 kick away from drawing that game. Sure, they didn't turn up, but it shows they need better consistency, but they can challenge with other teams. So it's good to see that he's got that. And there's no sort of panic or overreaction from the head coach there. Let's hear the other side of things from Clayton McMillan.
Playing at home special for us and our supporters, and keep encouraging them to come back in numbers to support us. So it was an important victory tonight.
What about Luke Jacobson? Stand out.
And he talks there about they look important having that victory for the fans and trying to keep having the numbers. And you've got to say actually the numbers are down because it didn't look like a big crowd last night, and in all honesty it wasn't. Just over 10,000 there for the Chiefs versus the Brumbies, which is their smallest crowd of the season, except for the opening game, obviously, which was restricted due to coronavirus back against the Highlanders. But their smallest crowd before this was against the Blues at 13,000. Definitely down there. Also, if we look at the other attendances that we've been given, because not all the games report them, but last weekend at Forsyth Bar, again, 10,800, just below 11,000 there. Again, the Highlanders' previous lowest one was 13,300 against the Blues. So again, not a great crowd for the Crusaders. 11,000. Again, their previous lowest was 12,000 against the Hurricanes. This is their lowest crowd. So crowds not turning up in the same numbers, unfortunately, for Super Rugby Trans-Tasman there. But you can clearly see, Clayton's very clear there, that the coaches are aware of this as well, and about trying to create entertainment and trying to get the fans through the doors.
I thought he was outstanding. He's been good all year, hasn't he? And some games when he's been a little bit quiet, ball just hasn't really sort of gone his way. But he showed a clean pair of heels at times today. I'll still hit him up about the shitty pass he tried to give to Webby. That should have been a try. So getting better, but not perfect.
Is that the old number 8 review coming out?
Oh no, I just reckon that those you don't get many opportunities at this level, and we've harped on all year around not cashing in on opportunities like that, and so that's a frustration because a decent pass and Webby goes in and then we're up by 25 points at half time. That's a lot different picture than a 15 or 16 point margin, because that's not a lot in the modern game. So we just need to nail those to be to keep advancing our game and being the real consistent contenders that we aspire to be. We probably just need to take stock of again the injuries, who have we actually got on deck, who can we anticipate coming.
Oh, sorry, I should have stopped just before that bit. But you got to say there that look, the that he's kind of he's aware they're not finishing off games when not finishing off opportunities when they should do. Say the Blues didn't, the Hurricanes didn't. When we get on to the Crusaders game next, you'll see they did finish opportunities, and that's kind of the difference between the top team in New Zealand or in the world and this next level of teams. A couple of comments in the live chat there that is there an argument that New Zealand actually could do with smaller stadiums? Well, yes, I think we'll see that the provincial teams will be moving out of these big stadiums. They're not going to be playing in them much. And you've got to say then, if they're not playing them there, how often do these stadiums really get used? Is it worth having these bigger stadiums? Aaron mentioning that crowds want to see competitive games, and perhaps it's a sign of the ability of the Australian teams. Potentially, yeah, that is probably part of it. But also there needs to be more of a tribal tribal atmosphere, or tribal built up by these Super Rugby sides, so that people turn up winning or losing. Remember, only one team can win, and get people turning up to support their team, not just because of who we're going to see. And I think that's where a lot of work needs to be done by these Super Rugby sides, and also the provinces, to be honest. Going to have a quick listen now to Clayton talking about the intensity of Super Rugby so far this year, and the sort of injuries that they're having.
Back on board to help us sort of scrap through the next 3 weeks.
Any other things out of time?
Nothing significant, I don't think, but Jonah's had a tight hemi. He should be fine. It's just the load, you know. Like, I'm actually starting to see now guys like Brad and Damien. They're energized the bunnies, but sometimes sort of in that last 20 minutes, and I know it was a free-flowing game and the ball was kind of in play for long periods of time, but it did look at times that we were running in quicksand, and the only logical sort of conclusion you can come to is that there's some tired boys who are playing big minutes, and we've had to play 7 games in a row now and travel, and it's not going to, it's pretty relentless, isn't it? So it is what it is. We'll suck it up, but it's tough.
So yes, there you go. Clayton mentioning how 7 games in 7 weeks, and basically not having those buys. So it has been tough. Obviously, they went through to the final, whereas other teams had a weekend off. Then they obviously haven't. So their resources are going to be stretched over the next few weeks. And look, players get injured when they get tired. So you need to be careful with players, as he says, like Dane McKenzie, like Brad Weber, who are starting to show fatigue from those ones, as it is. Moving on, the final game of the weekend is the Reds versus the Crusaders. With in this one, look, the Crusaders came out all guns blazing, didn't they? And not helped by, again, a lack of intensity by the Reds team. Clearly not the same team that was playing in Super Rugby or AU, or well, it is the same team, but not they're not playing in the same way. I think everything they have been building up for the whole psyche was towards winning that. But left the ball behind. Mitchell Mwanga then picks up and scores a try on 5 minutes, and with his perfect kicking record this evening, the points just kept on racking up. Again, the Reds tried a crossfield kick. Look, they tried that a lot last weekend, and it really didn't pay off. It didn't pay off again this weekend. A couple of phases later, after the Crusaders claim it, Mwanga breaks and puts Reese in to score. James O'Connor then chips over. The Reds did get it back, but just to throw an intercept to David Havili. Look, he did that last weekend as well, didn't he? And with lots of support, the Crusaders go over to score after 6 phases. They go to score, and suddenly it's 21-0 after 14 minutes. So more than score a minute at this point. The Crusaders have a scrum on their own 22. They go through 6 phases, just held up. That could have been another score. We had Richard Mwanga then scoring after a 5-minute scrum looping round, and it's 28-0 after 28 minutes. Really impressive by the Crusaders there. And let's be honest, the game is already gone. They don't score again before half-time, and McDermott taps and goes under the post after a scrum penalty, and to get a try just before half-time. But normal service is resumed after half-time. There's a line-out. Havili puts a crossfield kick in that Reese scores in the corner. And then even when there's nothing on, they can put up a kick and crossfield crossfield Gary Owen that gets claimed by Vanuku, and suddenly they go in to score. We then had Fine Nuku was just in touch and just missing out on a try there, but all that happens is from the next line out they get a penalty try, and it's 49-7. A couple of really nice scores by the Reds, including Wilson, but let's be honest, it was all way too little too late. But Harry Wilson down the sideline there, the number 8, dummy inside to Topu, and so it's totally bought by Jordan, and over he goes and scores. We then had a charge down by Wilson, collects it, then throws an over the head behind him pass to Vunivalu, who then goes on to score the try. So a couple of real beautiful tries involving Wilson there. I mean, that pulled it back to 21-49, but let's be honest, that didn't alter anything. The Crusaders' big men came to play. They bashed over. We had Cody Taylor scoring another try, and Jordan got a yellow card late on, and it was a consolation try for the Reds. The Reds came back in that second half. I mean, they still lost the second half, but they did score 21 points and 3 tries in it for some entertaining rugby. And I say 2 real fun tries involving Wilson there in that one, but it was all already gone at that point. Is there a semi-final before the final in Trans-Tasman Cup? No, I just think it's the top 2 going into the final at the end of this one, which I think we can all say is going to be, looking at the table now, is going to be 2 of the New Zealand sides. We've got the Blues and the Hurricanes coming at the top of the table, both with 10 points. But as I've already mentioned, the Hurricanes have played the 2 easiest teams already. And then the Crusaders, Highlanders and Chiefs all on 9 points just behind them. We've got to say the Crusaders have played the Brumbies and the Reds already. So they've got the 2 hard games out of the way and looking good to make it to the final. As everyone says, the final is going to be Crusaders versus somebody. Who is that going to be? Well, we'll just have to wait and see at this point. Amongst Australian teams, well, the Western Force and the Brumbies both picked up a losing bonus point in round 1, didn't they? As the Western Force nearly beat the Chiefs and the Brumbies nearly drew with the Crusaders. But that's the only point so far, with the Waratahs having conceded the most points with 112 from their games. But the Melbourne Rebels really showing you why they're struggling. They've only scored 16 points in their 2 games so far, which really isn't even going to win you 1 game, never mind 2. So the Rebels really need to sort out their scoring. Defensively at 85 points, that's not too bad, relatively speaking. I think the Hurricanes have given up 61 and the Crusaders 57 points. So look, but they really need to sort out that attack because they're just not in games at the moment. Looking forward to next weekend, we have the Hurricanes up against the Western Force at home on Friday night. That's a 7 p.m. game here in New Zealand. It'll be interesting how the Force travel on the road. Then on Saturday, we have 3 games. An early kickoff, 5 p.m. with the Waratahs hosting the Crusaders. Ouch, that's going to be painful, isn't it? That's going to be another big away win, you'd think. The Blues hosting the Brumbies at 7:15 p.m. So 10 minutes later than normal, folks. Normally it's 7:05, so a slightly later kickoff there for the Blues versus the Brumbies. And then the Reds versus the Chiefs at 9:45 rounds things out on Saturday. We have a Sunday game with the Highlanders hosting the Rebels at 2:35 p.m. That one in Queenstown from memory, so it'll be interesting to see how that one sort of pans out. So, in a good to see them taking it to the provinces. I think actually the Hurricanes Western Force is also in Nelson, isn't it? As well. Oh, sorry, Napier, not Nelson. Is in Napier. So 2 games next weekend going out to the provinces by the Kiwi sides, which is very good. So thank you, everybody. Don't forget to join me at 7 a.m. every morning with the morning sports briefing. We're back on Tuesday evening with the Driving Wall Show, where we might talk about things like the attendance of these games, etc. So we'll be looking forward to that one. So do join us on Tuesday evening at 8 p.m. for the Driving Maul show. And I hope you've all had a wonderful weekend, folks, and have a cracking week this week.